Someone decided it would be a good idea to put Trisha Paytas and Tana Mongeau in the same room and give them access to a podcast. It's a mess, so let's get into it. So, Tana Mongeau created a podcast and she had her very first guest on, Trisha Paytas. Tana's podcast is called Cancelled, so honestly, it was pretty fitting for one of the most frequently canceled YouTubers to guest star on only the second episode in. A lot of people were actually kind of surprised because there's been this feeling from people that Trisha and Tana really don't like each other. A few years ago when Trisha was still dating Jason, David tried to make Tana do something with Jason for a vlog, and it made both Tana and Trisha super uncomfortable and ended up ending their relationship. Some people thought maybe Trisha had some ill feelings towards Tana, but it looks like that's not the case. Trisha joined Tana on this week's episode of Cancelled, and it was filled with tea. The first person brought up was Tana and Trisha's ex-manager, Jordan. Jordan and Tana have worked together since day one. From the outside, it looked like they had a pretty good relationship. Honestly, it seemed like he was more of a babysitter to Tana, especially after watching her MTV show last year. Jordan had to force her to go to the doctor, cover for her when she missed launches, and be her personal alarm clock. Well, earlier this year, Tana announced that she actually signed with a new manager. She never said anything bad about Jordan, and everyone's been so confused. On this week's podcast, Tana finally spoke up about Jordan. Tana said she's never said anything about Jordan unless it's been very PR and professional. She gave off the impression that she really couldn't say much because maybe there's some legal reasons, but she did talk really highly of her new manager. Apparently, her new manager found her at her darkest time and has completely changed her life. Even her co-host Hunter said it's been crazy to see how much Tana's changed, both mentally and in her work ethic, ever since she changed managers. At this point, Tana and Trisha weren't mentioning Jordan's name at all. Then towards the end of the podcast, Trisha says, "Why did you get rid of Jordan?" I think the question caught Tana by surprise because she really didn't know what to say at first. Instead of directly answering, Tana says she's gonna ask Trisha a question that they probably both have the same answer for. Are you owed money? Trisha's like, oh my god, no comment, I'm not answering that. I think it's pretty safe to say Tana and her manager Jordan's breakup was probably over money. Tana talked about how professionalism in a manager is so beautiful. She said she wouldn't take back her time with Jordan, but they did outgrow each other and she realized that she just needed other things. Moving on to Jake Paul. Tana and Jake have such a weird relationship. Last month, Tana posted a TikTok saying, "When you hope he falls back in love with you after the fake wedding," and Jake duetted it holding a sign that said hell nah. Well, Tana confirmed what everyone was thinking. Jake and her aren't on the best terms. Trisha and Tana were talking about OnlyFans, and Trisha said Tana and Jake should make a home movie, if you know what I mean. And Tana said that wouldn't happen even just for the money because they're no longer on good terms. Shocking. The next bit of tea was about Shane Dawson. Now, Tana has never spoken out about Shane. The only thing she's done in the past is like tweets about how messed up one of her old videos with Shane was. Tana says she never talks about Shane because that time of her life was really interesting. She also feels like she doesn't have any room to talk or try and cancel Shane because of her past scandals, but Trisha says she does. Trisha brought up that very questionable video that her and Shane did together and asked her if she was even 18 at that time. Tana says she doesn't even remember if she was 18 yet, but if she was, it was like 18 and a day old. Trisha told Tana it's not her fault it happened because she loves Shane, and Tana says that Shane was her idol. Apparently one day Tana just woke up and reflected on that time of her life and started to think maybe it was kind of weird. Then Tana and Trisha moved on to Gabbie Hanna. Now this one I was kind of surprised about. Tana and Gabbie used to be friends, but they've always had their issues. Recently we learned from Joey Graceffa's video on Gabbie that Gabbie was actually not that nice to Tana during the filming of Escape the Night. Tana was liking tweets in support of Joey and his video, so it was becoming clear that her and Gabbie weren't on the best of terms. Well, during the podcast, Tana opened up about a really negative experience that she had with Gabbie Hanna recently. Tana says when she was 17, an older YouTuber at VidCon was trying to hook and they're actually still friends to this day, but recently she's been looking back and thinking about how messed up it truly was. Then last month, after Tana liked those tweets in support of Joey, Tana got a call from someone. She bleeped out who this person was, but they informed Tana that Gabbie Hanna was trying to sell them a story about this YouTuber trying to Tana when she was only.
And a couple weeks ago, I got a call from that, should I say it?
Are they doing an article?
That Gabbie Hanna was trying to sell to them that this YouTuber like me when I was like and that it was. And I was like, what if this was my trauma? Is this fucked up to say? Or like, what if this, it was so insane to me. I don't, because after all the Escape the Night.
That's gross.
I know. I liked a Joey Graceffa tweet about what, just impertinence to like his video or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I get this call. Gabbie Hanna called me and said this YouTuber was trying to hook up with you and you were sending you all this.
I hate that.
And I hate
like,
that. I didn't even think about the fact. I was like, damn, well, now that I'm thinking about it, I guess that could be something that could be, but it's mine to like have or not have. And
you cannot bring someone else's trauma public. Like if you've never talked about it, if you're friends with this person, like regardless of how wrong it was. Ew.
Yeah. Tana says it's so strange to her because what if that situation was traumatizing to her and then Gabbie Hanna's out here selling a story that Tana might not even want public. Tana talked about Gabbie's series and said Gabbie has a very interesting standpoint on everything. Tana claimed Gabbie has kept every text message since 2012. She said her and Gabbie are very different people, and she really didn't have a good experience with Gabbie on Escape the Night. At one point in the podcast, Tana and Trisha actually have a little bit of a disagreement. Tana said what she loved about Trisha was the fact that they've always kept it real on Frenemies and spoke their mind no matter what. Tana feels like maybe people thought they didn't like each other because Trisha calls her out, but that's just because they keep it real. Tana claimed Trisha called her out once on Frenemies for over face-tuning her photos and setting unrealistic beauty standards. And Trisha was like, I didn't call you out. I defended you. Ethan did all that. I would never do that. But like, look, I've watched every Frenemies and I swear I remember Trisha calling Tana out for face tuning. Turns out, Tana was right.
No, dude, Trisha's just brutally honest. And if someone's doing some shit, she's going to call them out. And there are times that Trisha's called me out for some like face tuning, creating a false beauty standard.
I did not call you out for that. I defended you. Ethan did. I was like, she's honest about that. No, oh my God, never. I saw she did something. People were calling out for photoshopping over the weekend. And you know what? Can I just say, as much as I was like against your video, I mean, she really does overdo it because I did see the side-by-side from this weekend. But it was like that. Okay, when it's unrecognizable.
She's a different person.
Okay.
That's what I was saying.
But
it's like, you look like, and.
But even like her face, she just changed her whole face shape. That is like not even her. Like no. I was so shocked. A different profile, like different everything. Yeah. I think just don't overdo it, but it does get a little crazy.
I really don't know why Trisha even lies about these things when you can so easily look them up. Finally, the tea we've all been waiting for. Trisha Paytas actually spoke out about Frenemies on Tana's podcast. Tana asked if they thought Frenemies would be a forever thing, and Trisha said they did. Trisha's marrying Hila's brother, and they used to be all cool with each other, so they thought the podcast would last longer than it did. But Trisha also says they didn't think the ending was actually their fault. They said in the last podcast that never aired, Ethan admitted that he was wrong and Trisha thinks he couldn't continue the show because he was the one at fault. They said this is something that wasn't as horrible as the things they've done in the past on Frenemies, so they think Ethan ended it because of the fact that it was his fault and he lied about Trisha wanting the staff fired. I guess we know why Trisha deleted their apology video to Ethan. They literally think the podcast ending was Ethan's fault. After Tana's podcast aired, Trisha posted their own video talking about their experience doing the show with Tana. Trisha says they have a really soft spot for Tana. They don't blame Tana at all for the whole David and Jason thing, and they actually hated that there was this narrative on the internet that Tana and Trisha didn't like each other just because of that. Trisha says during the podcast, they asked Tana who she would cancel if they could pick one person to just completely remove from the platform. Apparently, Tana answered who she'd pick, but it didn't make it into the podcast because her manager walked in and I guess he really didn't want her saying it. Trisha hints at who it was by saying that it's someone that deserves to be deplatformed. Why do I have a feeling it's James Charles? Trisha says they've really been enjoying podcasting lately, and they're currently trying to figure out what category of podcast they want to do most. Trisha kept complimenting Tana's set design for her podcast, and even inserted a clip where they compared it to the Frenemies set.
Also, I'm thinking this might be the new Frenemies, so.
I was like, give me a job, please. I'll be here. Oh.
I'm freaking out.
No, she's got like like this is what I wish Frenemies was. Like this is what Frenemies.
Trisha said this is in no way to shade Frenemies, but if they ever decided to do their own podcast, they were going to go all out with the set. Trisha says Frenemies was a great time and a great thing, but now they've realized they really do love podcasting. People in the comments of this video aren't really that happy with Trisha's comments about Frenemies. Someone said, "This is what I wish Frenemies was. Superficial people sucking up to you all day and inflating your continuously expanding ego in replacement of someone who was nothing but a genuine friend, not to mention family of yours. What a surprise." And I mean, they are kind of right. The podcast was very pro Trisha, and I kind of got the feeling Tana really just wanted to do her best to keep it positive and not say anything bad around Trisha. I mean, we all saw how upset Trisha got when Tana mentioned the face tuning comment, when in reality, Trisha actually did say it. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think about everything down below. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up button because it really does help my channel, and I'll see you next time.